After giving up my career to support my husband, his mother said, "Now that you're not working, you can devote yourself to serving my son properly." My husband smiled and said, "That's the plan." I grinned and said, "Actually, I have a new plan." Their smiles faded as I revealed what I had secretly been preparing. So, I, 34 female, was married to Daniel, 37 male, for almost 8 years. We met in college, fell in love, and did the whole "we're partners" thing. Or at least, I thought we were partners. Turns out, I was just playing my role in a script someone else wrote. His mother, Margaret, 64 female. Margaret never liked me. Not in an outright "I hate you" way, but in that slow, insidious way where everything she said had an edge. Every compliment was backhanded. Every smile was tight. Every conversation had an underlying message: I wasn't good enough for her son. Which was funny, considering I was the one who had the better job, made more money, and handled most of the adult stuff in our marriage. Bills, groceries, appointments, you name it. Daniel worked in finance, but he had a history of job hopping. I never made a big deal about it. People switch jobs. Careers shift. I had no problem being the steady one. But Daniel and Margaret? Oh, they had a problem with it. About a year ago, Daniel started talking about having kids. I wasn't against it, but I wasn't ready. I had spent years building my career, and I wasn't about to throw it away just because my biological clock was ticking, as Margaret so kindly put it. Daniel acted disappointed, but said he understood. Then he got laid off. At first, I was supportive. I told him to take his time looking for something new. We weren't struggling financially, so I figured a couple of months off wouldn't hurt. But months passed and he wasn't looking. At all. Instead, he was relaxed. He started sleeping in. He played video games for hours. He picked up hobbies like baking and suddenly started acting like a stay-at-home husband. Meanwhile, Margaret started coming over more. She'd drop off food, tell Daniel how hard this must be for him, how stressful it must be to rely on me financially. And then she'd turn to me with that tight smile and say, "It's a good thing you're stepping up. This is what a wife should do." That was the first time I felt it. That gnawing feeling that something wasn't right. One night, Margaret invited us over for dinner. I didn't want to go, but Daniel said she was making his favorite meal, so I caved. We're sitting at the table, and Margaret is in rare form, going on about how woman's place is in the home, how she gave up everything to be a wife and mother, how Daniel deserves a woman who will take care of him the right way. Then she looked me dead in the eye and said, "Now that you're not working, you can devote yourself to serving my son properly." I laughed. Out loud. But Margaret didn't laugh. She just kept smiling. Then Daniel, my husband, the man who supposedly respected my career, my choices, my time, leans back in his chair, looks me right in the eye, and says, "That's the plan." He said it so easily, like it had already been decided. I felt my stomach drop. That's when I realized this wasn't some accident. This wasn't just Daniel being lazy or Margaret being pushy. This was a plan. Daniel let himself get fired. He and his mother had cooked this up. They wanted me to take on the role of the perfect little housewife while Daniel got to be the man of the house without actually doing anything. And they expected me to just go along with it. I smiled. I smiled so wide my cheeks hurt. "Actually, I have a new plan." Margaret's smile twitched. Daniel frowned. I didn't elaborate. I just kept eating. And that was the moment I decided, if they wanted a game, I'd give them a war. I didn't react that night. I didn't fight. I didn't argue. Instead, I nodded along, pretended to agree, let them think they had me. Then I got to work. For the next 6 months, I played the part while setting up my escape. I found a divorce lawyer. A damn good one. I didn't want to just leave, I wanted to leave with everything I was owed. We had a joint account. I stopped using it. Instead, I slowly funneled my direct deposits into a new account under my name only. I left just enough in the joint account to keep up appearances. I started keeping records. Every conversation. Every text. Every call where Margaret talked about how I needed to serve Daniel. Every time Daniel mentioned how nice it would be for me to finally focus on the home. And the cherry on top? Daniel's Snapchat messages to his friends where he bragged about how he had finally broken me. How I was giving in. How I was about to be the wife he always wanted. I screenshotted everything. I started job hunting quietly. Found an even better position. One that paid more and offered relocation. Because I wasn't just going to leave Daniel. I was going to disappear. As the months passed, I started acting more submissive. I stopped arguing. I let Daniel and Margaret believe I was falling into place. Margaret became smugger. Daniel became lazier. And then, they made a mistake. One night, Daniel sat me down and said, "Since you're home more now, I think it's time we started trying for a baby." Not if I wanted to. Not, "How do you feel about this?" He had already decided. I looked at him and asked, "Who's going to pay for everything?" He blinked. "Well, you'll be home, so I'll take care of the finances." I laughed. "With what job?" He had no answer. Margaret jumped in with, "Daniel will find something soon. But a baby is more important than a paycheck." That's when I knew they were never going to let me go back to work. A few days later, I found out Daniel had taken my name off our lease. He had unilaterally renewed it without me. Meaning, if I left, I'd have no claim to our home. He wasn't planning for me to leave. He was planning to trap me. And that's when I decided it was time. I didn't react when I found out about the lease. I didn't scream, didn't cry, didn't ask him why. I just stared at the email from the landlord, confirming the renewal, with only Daniel's name on it. He had done it behind my back. He had removed me from our home, legally locking me out of the place I paid for, while still expecting me to cook, clean, and make babies for him. I felt sick. That night, I acted normal. I made dinner, sat across from him, watched him eat like nothing had changed. But inside, I was done. I had been planning to leave, but now I wanted more. Daniel and Margaret had spent months treating me like I was stupid. Like I would just accept my new life. Like I wouldn't fight back. So I changed my plan. I wasn't just going to leave. I was going to burn it all down first. For the next few weeks, I let myself become exactly what they wanted. I started dressing the way Margaret liked, soft colors, no makeup, modest outfits. I cooked full meals, let Daniel brag to his friends that I was settling into my role. I even let him think we were trying for a baby. I threw out my birth control pills right in front of him. Except, they were already empty. I had flushed the real ones weeks ago. Margaret was thrilled. "Finally, you're making the right choices." Daniel was smug. "See? I told you she just needed time." I smiled and nodded. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, I was preparing for war. One afternoon, I accidentally left my laptop open with a job offer email visible. Just enough for Daniel to see. He saw it. I knew because, that night, he was different. Less relaxed. More watchful. "Are you still looking for jobs?" he asked. I frowned, acting confused. "What?" "No. I told you, I'm happy." He stared at me. I stared back. He didn't believe me. The next day, my laptop was moved. He had gone through it. I let him think he was smart. That he had caught me before I could do anything. That I was trapped. Because the real plan? The real plan was something he couldn't see coming. Margaret had been pushing for grandkids since the day we got married. Daniel, ever the golden child, was desperate to give her one. So, I gave them exactly what they wanted. I started acting differently, nauseous in the mornings, more tired, forgetting things. Margaret noticed first. She practically vibrated with excitement. "Do you think?" she asked one night, eyes shining. I pretended to be embarrassed. "I don't know. It's too soon to tell." She immediately made Daniel go buy pregnancy tests. I took them. And, surprise, they were negative. Margaret was disappointed. But I just sighed and said, maybe it's too early. So I took another test. And another. And another. All negative. And then, a week later, one was positive. Daniel lost his mind with excitement. Margaret started crying. I just smiled. Because that test? It wasn't mine. I had taken a real test earlier that week. Negative, of course. But I had a friend who was actually pregnant. And let's just say, she owed me a favor. Margaret went into full wedding planner mode, but for a baby. She started ordering nursery furniture. She called Daniel every day to remind him that his responsibility was to provide for his growing family. And suddenly, Daniel was panicking. Because now, he actually had to do something. No more lazy mornings. No more video games. No more playing House Prince while I funded his lifestyle. He started looking for jobs. He started asking me about our finances. How much do we have in savings? Should we start budgeting? I acted clueless. "Oh, I don't know. You handle all that, right?" His face went pale. Because he didn't. One night, Daniel came home looking off. He sat me down. "We need to talk." Here it was. The moment I'd been waiting for. "I think," he started slowly, "we should move in with my mom for a while." I blinked. "What?" He swallowed. "Just until the baby comes. It would save money. She can help with things. It just makes sense." He wanted me to move into Margaret's house. To be completely under her control. To make sure I never left. I stared at him, really stared at him. And I realized, he wasn't just desperate. He was afraid. He had no money. He had no job. He had nothing. And suddenly, he knew it. I leaned back, pretending to think it over. Then I said, "Okay." He blinked. "Wait, really?" I nodded. "If that's what you think is best." Margaret was overjoyed. She started planning the move immediately. Meanwhile, I was making my final moves. Margaret wasted no time. Within days, she had a whole itinerary laid out. She planned every detail of our move into her house, down to the nursery wallpaper. She sent me baby name lists. She started talking about quitting my job for me. You'll be too busy with the baby to work anyway. Daniel will take care of things. I smiled and nodded. Of course. Daniel, on the other hand, he was unraveling. At first, he was thrilled, his mother was happy, I was in line, and his perfect little world was taking shape. Then, he checked our bank account. And that's when everything changed. It was a Tuesday night. Daniel was on his laptop while I pretended to fold baby clothes Margaret had already started sending over. Then I heard it. A sharp inhale. The clicking of a mouse. The way his breathing changed. And I knew. He was looking at the account. The account that should have had a hefty savings balance. Instead, it had barely enough to cover the next month's rent. I had been moving the money for months, shifting it into my private account, making sure I had full control over everything when the time came. Where's the money? He asked, his voice forced calm. I blinked. What do you mean? He turned the screen toward me. Our savings. It's gone. I looked at it, feigning surprise. That's weird. You've been managing the finances, haven't you? His eye twitched. You know I don't. He stopped himself. Oh! He realized. He had been so busy assuming I was trapped that he never noticed I had been the one in control the entire time. I waited, watching the gears turn in his head. Watching as he pieced together the reality. Watching the panic set in. Because Margaret had been pushing him to step up. Because a baby was coming. Because he had no money, no job, and no way out. He was the one who was trapped now. For the next few days, Daniel was different. He was distant. Jumpy. And then? He did something I never saw coming. He went through my phone. I caught him at 2 a.m., sitting on the edge of the bed, my phone unlocked in his hands. I didn't say anything. Just walked over and sat next to him. He was staring at my banking app. He had seen everything. He turned to me, eyes dark with something I couldn't quite name. Why are you moving money? I tilted my head. Why are you looking through my phone? Silence. I took my phone back. You know that's illegal, right? What you just did. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. Are you leaving me? I didn't answer. Because he already knew. He exhaled a shaky, uneven breath. Then he did the thing that truly sealed his fate. He called his mother. I was still sitting there when he put the call on speaker. Mom, he said, his voice raw, we have a problem. Margaret's voice was sharp, alert. What? What happened? He hesitated, then finally admitted it. She's taking the money. A beat of silence. Then, that ungrateful little b****. I smiled. Because now? Now I had her on record. I let Margaret rant. Let her spit venom about how she knew I was never right for Daniel. She's always been selfish. After everything we've done for her. After she tricked us with this baby, oh, that was interesting. Even she wasn't fully convinced I was pregnant. I filed that away for later. Then I stood up, stretched, and walked toward the bedroom door. Daniel followed me with his eyes. Where are you going? I turned back, smiling. Oh, don't worry. You'll find out soon. And then? I walked out. 2 days later, Daniel woke up to a knock on the door. It was the landlord. And he had bad news. Your lease is invalid, he told Daniel. Your wife never signed it. Which means you can't legally renew it without her. Daniel called me immediately. What the hell did you do? I sipped my coffee. Oh, I don't know, Daniel. You're the one handling our finances, right? Silence. Then I dropped the second bomb. I also had my name removed from the utility bills last month. So, I'd start packing if I were you. Margaret tried to save him. She offered to co-sign a new lease to cover some of his bills. But Daniel was drowning. Because all this time, he thought I was the one being backed into a corner. He never saw the walls closing in on him. And then, right as he was grasping for control, I pulled the rug out completely. I sent Margaret the screenshots of Daniel bragging to his friends about how he had manipulated me. How he had tricked me into giving up my career. I didn't include a message. I didn't need to. Because I knew exactly what she would do. Margaret turned on him. I don't know what was said between them. All I know is that a few hours later, Daniel showed up at my office. Yes, my office. Because that's another thing he hadn't figured out. I never actually left my job. I had been working remotely under a temporary contract with the same company I had quit. And now? Now they were moving me across the country. Daniel stood in the lobby, eyes wild, demanding to see me. I walked out, calm, collected, and just loud enough for everyone to hear, I said, Sir, you need to leave before I call security. His face collapsed. Because he knew. He knew he had already lost. Daniel didn't leave. He stood there, frozen, his face pale, his mouth slightly open like he was still processing what I had just said. Security had already started moving toward him. Other employees were staring. Someone whispered, "Is that her husband?" He must have realized how pathetic he looked, because he took a shaky step back. His hands clenched at his sides, and for a second, I thought he was going to yell, make a scene, demand answers. Instead, he whispered, "Please." I almost laughed. Please? Please? After everything? After he played me? After he let his mother manipulate him into treating me like some disposable servant? After he tried to trap me with a fake life I never agreed to? Now he was begging? I didn't even blink. "Daniel, leave." Security reached him. One of the guards, a man named Patrick who had seen me come in every morning, who had chatted with me about my coffee order, stepped between us. "You need to exit the building, sir." Daniel didn't fight. He didn't scream. He just stood there for another second, his face crumbling into something desperate before he finally turned and walked out the door. And just like that, he was gone. But the fight wasn't over. I still had one more person to deal with. Margaret called me 2 hours later. I picked up. She didn't waste time. "What the hell have you done?" Her voice was shrill, sharp with rage. She was livid. "Perfect." "I don't know, Margaret," I said sweetly. "Did something happen?" "You ruined his life," she screeched. "He has nothing now. No home, no job," I cut her off. "No money." Silence. Then, softer, "Where is it?" I smiled. "Oh, you mean my money?" Margaret inhaled sharply. That's when I knew. She had been counting on it. Maybe she thought she could get it from me after I left. Maybe she thought she could manipulate Daniel into getting it for her. But now? Now, there was nothing left for them. "You're a monster," she spat. "You tricked him," I laughed. I actually laughed. "I tricked him." I repeated. "That's rich, coming from you." She started spewing more nonsense. How I was ungrateful, how I ruined her son, how I owed them for taking care of me. I let her rant. Then I said, "You should check your emails." Silence. I hung up. Because Margaret? She was about to receive the final nail in the coffin. While she had been screaming at me, I had sent every screenshot to her entire church group. Margaret was obsessed with her image. The perfect wife. The perfect mother. The woman who raised a strong, capable man. And now? Now, everyone was going to see what kind of man she really raised. The texts where Daniel bragged about fooling me. The recordings where Margaret encouraged it. The bank records proving they had tried to financially trap me. I even included a sweet little note. I just thought everyone should know the kind of values Margaret truly raised her son with. Enjoy. And then? I blocked her. Margaret might have had control over Daniel. She might have had control over his past relationships. She might have had control over their twisted little world. But she never had control over me. And now? She never would. Margaret was disgraced. Her church friends? They turned on her instantly. Turns out, people don't really like it when you get caught manipulating and financially abusing someone. She tried damage control. She told people I was lying. That I trapped Daniel. That I was a gold digger. But the receipts didn't lie. She lost friends. Respect. Everything she had built her image around. And Daniel? Daniel lost everything. His mother was too busy dealing with her own fallout to help him. His friends, the ones he had bragged to, they wanted nothing to do with him now. He tried calling me. Again and again. I never answered. Until one day, he stopped. And I moved on. It's been a few months now. I'm in a new city, in a new apartment, with a new job that pays more than my last one. I wake up every morning knowing that I am free. And Daniel? I don't know. I don't care. Because the truth is, he was never my partner. He was his mother's puppet. A weak man who thought he could trap me, not realizing I was 10 steps ahead the entire time. I should have seen it earlier. Maybe I did, but I ignored it. Maybe part of me thought I could love him into being a better man. But love isn't enough when someone is willing to betray you. And now? Now, he's the one left with nothing. Just like he planned for me.